Okay, it looks like we're on air. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm hoping all of you now can see my screen. I'm going to launch my PowerPoint presentation. This is our week 5 presentation on open source firewalls. I'm the presenter, Dottie Roberts. My team members are Cynthia Bampy, Samuel Prush, and Victoria Ackerman. Tonight we're going to be talking about open source firewall. I did some research and found a wonderful news article given out by Tech Radar. I've presented the links. In the article, it discusses 5 free open source firewall softwares. Zone Alarm is created by Checkpoint. I used to use Checkpoint on one of the networks I took care of, and the Checkpoint firewall, along with their web content filtering, was a wonderful product commercially. So this is one I'm probably going to try out at some point on my VM. There's a Komodo free firewall for Windows, Glasswire free firewall, TinyWall, and then OpenDNS Home. OpenDNS Home is a cloud product. It's not necessarily a software you install on your computer as much as a connection point that you make with the open source cloud to be able to filter your traffic for you. In my demonstration tonight, I have chosen to do the TinyWall. Each free open source firewall listed earlier features a fantastic service, but I have chosen to demonstrate the installation of TinyWall Firewall. My current Windows 8.1 VM is using Windows Firewall and Windows Defender. I chose to do that instead of using a commercial product for the firewall or for antivirus. TinyWall has been designed to enhance the use of the Windows Firewall, giving a friendly user interface, advanced time-based rules, and block lists. It provides an effective manner to using the Windows Firewall engine by automatically blocking attempted attacks. The software touts the no pop-up approach. Adjustments to the TinyWall rules configuration may need to be made for file print sharing issues. The TinyWall was developed by Karoli Pados. That ends my presentation. I'll move on to my VM environment and demonstrate the installation of the software. In my open source file folder, I've downloaded the TinyWall version 2.1. It's an MSI launch. I'm going to accept the licensing and click install. It may take a few minutes for the TinyWall to install itself. And while we're watching that, I was going to bring up the article, but maybe it'll install quicker than what I thought. From reading the article from Tech Radar and then going to the TinyWall website, I was looking around the website, and the advertisement for the TinyWall, it says it's a lightweight firewall, open source. It touts, like I stated, a no pop-up feature, so it's not constantly flagging you to, do I need to block this, or do you want it left open? So here, the TinyWall setup wizard is finished, and in my system tray, you can see that the TinyWall firewall is now set up on my VM. So when I click the TinyWall icon, I get a listing of options and there's an enable block list. There's a whitelist for executable, whitelist for process, whitelist for Windows. There's also the show connections. I'm going to click on this one first, just so we can kind of see what's going on. And at this point, it's show active connections. There currently aren't any. So I'm going to open a browser. And note that I'm getting a block already. Before I installed the firewall, Internet Explorer was working on my VM. I'm also going to go ahead and click Show Open Ports and then Show Blocked Apps in the last 2 minutes. I'm going to click over here and go to Yahoo. And notice I still can't see the page. I'm going to open my command prompt and I'm going to ping the website, which will give me the IP address. So now over here in TinyWall, I'm going to see if I can locate that IP address for Internet Explorer and unblock it. I'm not seeing it at this point, so I'm going to click the refresh. And now I'm going to check again. There it is. Internet Explorer, remote destination address 206.190.39.43. I'm going to go ahead and click that and then tell it to unblock. Oh, before I do that, let me show you that it does have it blocked for the direction of going outbound. I'm gonna, there we go. I'm gonna close that and open this a little bit more. There we go. So when I right click, I click on block, it comes and tells you that the configuration has changed. I'm going to click refresh, and I'm going to retry Yahoo. See if it opens up. Notice that I'm not getting, I'm refreshing the page and it's not responding. So I'm going to come back down here. Well, actually, I'm going to go to approve the whitelist by Windows. It says click on the inner area of the open window to select application. So I'm going to click that. Firewall rules for unrecognized Explorer have been changed. Click the pop-up to edit the exception. So normally there is a pop-up that comes up. I'm not seeing it happen yet. See if it'll let me through. It hasn't. So let me take another look here at the processes. I'm going to close this for a second, come back in and go to the processes. Here we go. So here are the processes. The problem may lie in the fact that it's still blocking Internet Explorer. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. So I click that pop-up, and I think I probably should have done that sooner. It comes up and gives an unknown application. It wants to know what type of restrictions, if any, you're going to put on it. I'm going to leave it as the default, unrestricted UDP and TCP/IP traffic. I'll click OK. Now it popped up and said added to firewall whitelist. So I should be able to do an F5 and see if it renders. Now it's rendering my Yahoo. So that was fairly simple and fairly easy. You just need to know a little bit of background on how the application actually works. You can go between the different whitelist capabilities of opening up the traffic so that you can get the applications to work properly. One of the other applications I'm going to try out here is Adobe. Here we go. I'm going to open Adobe real quick. This time I'm going to work it using the whitelist by window. It says in the inner area of the open window to select its application by whitelisting. So I'm going to click that. So it added Adobe to the firewall to open it up. And then we'll go back in. Okay. I want to do that right now. There we go. You also have a change mode function. You have a green light indicating normal protection, block all traffic, allow outgoing traffic, disable firewall, or auto learn. I'm going to go ahead and select normal protection. And then you also have a manage option. You can come in and set your firewall settings. So you always usually have a general tab. Here's the application exceptions. Notice that my Adobe Reader is on that along with Internet Explorer. There's special exceptions that you can make. And then there's maintenance. Since it is a free wall or a free open source firewall, you can make a donation, of course, to the developer as he continues to develop his product. You can also find out about the licensing of the product and attributions. So this ends my presentation for open source firewall, and I'm going to open up the table for discussion. If anybody has any questions, if you want to unmute your mic. If we have no discussion, we can go ahead. I'll stop the broadcasting and I can post a link to our discussion board.
I guess I have one question.
Okay.
So do you basically have to allow any kind of internet access into the firewall? Is that basically how it works? Or is there certain exceptions already?
Normally when you do here where it's stated on the change mode, normal protection, so you're relying on the developer to already have some preset rules to protect your desktop. If for some reason you have an indication that you're getting attacked, there's various ways that you can tell. One of them is if you have a hard drive on your desktop computer, if your hard drive is constantly spiking And let me show you that in Task Manager. If you go into your performance, and you're seeing a lot of I/O, that's input output to the disk. If you're seeing that racing at 100%, there's a high chance that you're under attack. And so by using this firewall, you can change the mode to block all. You could stop every incoming or outgoing traffic to your desktop. Or you can choose just to allow outgoing. So what that would mean is if you're using the internet browser, it would allow you to go out to the different pages, but it's not going to let anything come in. It's going to block that. You can also disable your whole firewall. For example, if you're trying to print your presentation and you're having difficulties in getting it to print, more than likely your firewall is blocking that. And if you do not know where or what rule you need to change, then you can disable it completely and be able to do your print job. But you'll want to go back and find out what you need to do to allow it to print. In this case, you could go to Show Connections and look for the spool executable. Right now it's listening. If I was to send a print job, it might block that. Of course, you can right-click it and tell it to unblock it if you know how to do that. So there's some learning involved with running a firewall on your computer. Notice it also gives source ports, so it's letting you know what port traffic is coming in and out of. So I'm going to close this. And so, Victoria, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Okay. So you also have a lot of great features. My understanding from doing the research on TinyWall is it integrates with it's integrating with the Windows firewall. Where are you? So it actually integrates in here. And the difference is knowing in the Windows firewall how to make your changes. This is very similar to the TinyWall, except it's a little bit more sophisticated in how you create your rules to allow traffic in and out. And a lot of home users who are not IT savvy can find this very challenging and frustrating. So from my understanding, the Tiny Firewall is built to be more user-friendly and allow ease of access to maintain your environment.
Really nice.
So here, this is my VM, but I do have a commercial product that I use, Semantic, on my normal computer. And so comparative to using this and that tiny firewall, the tiny wall is a lot easier than this one. So you have to know or have some idea of what you're doing when working. As you can tell, there's a lot more sophistication than what that tiny wall requires to use. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation this evening. Are there any other questions?
No, I think you pretty much cover everything. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this and close that and bring up my live event again. Oop, wrong one. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen sharing.
Yeah.
And so now we can
You-
see each other.
You can make it not live anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how, but
You click
here,
the
stop broadcast.